as I watched this movie, which I liked, I'll say that first, because I'll get to the actual review here in a second, but as I watched this movie, there's a very uncomfortable feeling that kind of runs through me. Kind of the same one I got when I was watching Love, Simon. And that is that the boyfriend of this story, who is the catalyst for kind of all of this to happen, the boyfriend in most romantic comedy is the not right one for our heroine, who she will eventually get rid of in order to get with the right person, is a emotionally handicapped, pop culture obsessed man-child spouting his opinions into his webcam and is completely oblivious to just how sad and pathetic an excuse for an adult he really is. And perhaps I'm projecting too much, but I'm watching this going, is that me? I mean, I hope it's not me, but there are a lot of similarities. He mentions Antigone, for God's sakes. Shit. No wonder I'm still single. Okay, so oddly uncomfortable self-reflection notwithstanding, I actually found this movie rather charming. Not perfect by any stretch, but interesting enough and different enough and just a very well-assembled cast, especially our two main characters. So if you haven't heard of this movie, so Rose Brant plays Annie, who is in a relationship with Chris O'Dowd, who is the aforementioned Brandon stand-in. Chris O'Dowd is obsessed with this rock star from the early 90s named Tucker Crowe, who had one album, basically, and then, disappeared off the face of the earth. And he's obsessed with the guy. And somehow he gets a hold of a bootleg copy of, demos of some songs and whatnot. And Rose Brant, his girlfriend, is just so sick of it all that she writes a very negative review, again, on her boyfriend's webpage, which the real Tucker Crowe, played by Ethan Hawke, reads and emails her saying, I agree with you. And they start emailing back and forth. This starts a friendship, which leads to sort of a romance. And, you can kind of guess where things go from there. So, there's a lot to enjoy in this movie, not the least of which are, again, our two leads, Rose Brant and Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke has just gotten kind of more charming as he's gotten older. I think when he was younger, he had kind of this edge to him in a lot of his films. But as he's kind of gotten older, his on-screen persona has softened a little bit. Playing burnouts and people who have watched their youth kind of vanish is kind of his stock in trade now, which is a little weird. But he does it very well and can garner a great deal of sympathy just out of nowhere. And he and Rose Brant have some really nice chemistry together. What I really like about this in terms of a romantic comedy is in most romantic comedies, the girl and the guy get together, and then usually the girl discovers something about the guy, something he tried to keep secret, something he's not ashamed of, but of course he had a good reason for it, and that creates the conflict, which leads us into Act 3. It's the breakup, and then will they, won't they kind of thing. This movie does something very, very different in that because he's a burnt-out ex-rocker and he's got, like, all these kids by all these different women all over the place, his negative qualities, his past, is put right out there in front of her right from the start. It's not a secret who he was and that he's been kind of a screw-up in his younger days. And he's still paying for it. And it's also refreshing that he doesn't try to hide it or run away from it. You know, in terms of his relationship with her, he's very upfront about the whole thing. So that already creates a new kind of tension and a new kind of relationship that is built here. And here's the thing about this movie, which is kind of interesting to me. I don't think it works as a romantic comedy. It's a good movie, but it doesn't work as the genre it will be kind of classified as, because I don't think this is really a romance. They try, when the film doesn't really work, is when they try to, at the end, get them together. But they're so awkward with each other. That's part of the point. They worked better as friends. And it's very interesting. You don't see that in movies a lot. You don't, one of the big critiques, you don't see a male and a female on screen together unless, one of them's gay, who can be friends. It's always, there's always a sexual component. And here, yes, there is that kind of undertone, but it's more about them finding a friend, someone who understands, someone who, they can kind of share their fears with. It's a very, very interesting relationship that is built between these two, which you don't see in a lot of romantic comedies. Not a lot of romantic comedies spend a lot of time building the relationship of the characters. It's always just kind of meet, fall in love, done. But these two, there's a friendship there beforehand, and that's what's really compelling to watch. So where does this movie not necessarily work? And again, it's not that it's bad, but it doesn't work in the same place that Love, Simon didn't work for me, and that is in the original boyfriend, Chris O'Dowd, who is the obsessive, man-child. Yeah, because here's what's, and kind of it's the same problem that Love, Simon had, in that the rest of the film and their relationship is so honest and nuanced and almost realistic that this guy is so over the top in his obsession that he's too comical. I know there are people like this, and I'm sure, again, looking at him like, holy crap, is that me? I'm sure I'm like this in some ways. I'm sure friends of mine don't want to hear me talk about the Muppets anymore. But, but he is just too much of this kind of self-absorbed, conspiracy theorist, and all that. His characterization doesn't mesh with the rest of the movie. Now, where this doesn't hold true is there's a really great scene where all three of them sit down to dinner. Don't ask how we got there. And of course, the obsessive fan is going off on this whole thing about this, your music is this and this and this and this and this, and I know all these things about you. And of course, the aging rock star is like, yeah, he's trying to be polite, but finally just kind of breaks down and is like, you don't fucking know me. You don't know anything about my life. And that album I made was shit. I hate that album and I think it's terrible and you're kind of stupid for obsessing over it. And at first it looks like this is going to be a scene where, the idiot man-child is kind of put in his place. But then it does a complete 180. And the idiot man-child turns around and says, you know what, I don't care if you don't value your work. I value it. It meant something to me. It's important to me. And art is not for the artist. It's for the people who consume it. It's for the people who, feel it and, get something out of it. And it looked like, and first of all, that was a really great scene, and it was such an unexpected thing. And again, this is something this movie does really well is kind of, it takes the romantic comedy cliches and tweaks them a bit. So not only did it work there, but it looked like, for a moment, that character who was the worst character in the film, and, you know, the one that was the most unrealistic to me, and the one that, you know, just was kind of dragging the film down, it looked like that character actually had a moment of character growth, which again is not something that tends to happen to the, you know, the original boyfriend character of these movies, you know, or the original girlfriend character, even for that matter. They're not meant to be understood or relatable or anything like that. They're meant to be, you know, the one we don't want to see our hero or heroine end up with. And for the first time, it was like, holy cow, you know, I tried to say cow and crow at the same time, you know, holy crow, here is an actual bit of character development for this character, and it was wonderful. Unfortunately, the next time we see him, he's gone right back to, you know, that horrible kind of character that you don't like. But so they get rid of any goodwill you kind of gain from that one scene. But you know, I applaud them for actually giving him that moment, because one of the things I was having trouble with, especially in his characterization, and I had a conversation with a friend of mine about this the other day, you know, about one of the many reasons I have a problem with like a show like The Big Bang Theory. Using The Big Bang Theory as an example, one of the jokes of that show, and they only have a few, but one of the jokes of that show is, ha ha, these nerds like nerd things. Ha ha, these doctors read comic books. Ha ha, they want to go to Comic-Con. Ha ha, they like Star Trek. And it never really, at least not in the episodes I've seen, and admittingly I'm not a huge, you know, fan of the show, so I haven't seen all the episodes, so it's possible I missed this. But they never really bother to explain to you why these characters obsess about the things they obsess about. The things we obsess about are things that matter to us, are things that define us. You know, they defined us at an early age, or there's something that came along. You know, a great example. Again, I'm a little off topic here, but you know, it's my fucking show, so who cares? I heard Who's on First for the first time on an airplane, and was hooked on Abbott and Costello from right then. They were one of my many obsessions. And I went to learn everything I could about them. I wanted to hear everything they did. I wanted to see every movie they made. Because they hit me at just that time in life. I was in junior high, or just about to go into junior high. And my sense of humor was evolving and changing. And they hit me at just that time. And there are certain things that have hit at just those times. The Muppets, wrestling, Abbott and Costello, Star Trek. You know, are some of those things that hit just at those times that make me the man I am, for good or ill. You know, I know there are plenty of people out there who would say, well, so those are the things to blame. But what I'm getting at, and to get back to my original point, is that we don't get a moment with this character, Chris O'Dowd's character, in the movie, to understand why he is obsessed with this song. He says it's important to him. Why? When did it come along for him? When did it happen for him? Why was he obsessed? And we wouldn't need much. Just a line, just a short little monologue or something, to understand why he is this obsessed. Because you don't get obsessed about things unless somehow it speaks to you. And I think what this film was missing, and what it almost had in that really great scene, is a thing to go, yeah, this guy is comically obsessed, but there's a hole that this obsession fills. There is something about it that spoke to him when he needed it. And maybe we could have humanized this guy a little bit more and made him a little bit more than just the punchline of, God, I hope she doesn't end up with that nerd. Why was he this upset? Maybe it could have been a self-realization of him, that maybe it was an album that he heard when he was a kid after his mom died or something. And, maybe it's time he needs to put that behind him and grow up and get over it and, try new things. There was a shot there for some real development, and it didn't take it, because it's a romantic comedy and you have to stick to those cliches that the first guy has to be a dud, for one reason or another, and you can't quite break out of it. So yeah, I got off on a bit of a tangent there, sorry, but that is something that really bugged me about this movie, and especially, and again, it's the same thing that happened with Love, Simon, is that it stands out so much because the rest of the movie is so good. Because the rest of it is so enjoyable, and the character is so charming, and so, so wonderfully human. I haven't seen a movie, excluding the Chris O'Dowd character, I haven't seen a movie where I felt like the characters were actually people. Our two leads especially. All the other side characters still kind of fit the cliches, but they're downplayed a bit. But the two of them, Rose Martin and Ethan Hawke, really nail it. And again, these feel like real people, real lived-in people. And I think that's the thing, and maybe I'm just getting old here, but I think that's one of the pluses when you do a movie about characters who actually are old enough to have a past. The Ethan Hawke character, it's a past that he's trying to forget or trying to make up with. And, the Rose Brent character, it's a person who is coming to terms with, like, they don't really have that much of a past to run away from or live up to. They just kind of have been surviving and, wanting to take those steps to, kind of change that life. Whereas a lot of romantic comedies are about people in their 20s, now, and, the people who aren't old enough to really have regrets in a lot of cases. Look at kind of the ultimate romantic comedy, When Harry Met Sally, and that is a story both about a relationship, over years, and about these people going from being just out of college to being in their 30s and, having ex-wives and all this. So they have a past and baggage and everything to kind of go along with it. And I think that's not a tact we see a lot. We don't see films, and again, now I'm really sounding old, and I don't mean to, but we don't really see films that deal with life of that age bracket. We see films with young people, and we see films with those adorable old people that they come out with, your life's not over, kind of thing. But they don't show much about these characters in, my age bracket, in their 40s, There's not a lot of that. Unless it's like some a housewife determining that she's tired of being a housewife thing, like Puzzle was, But, so I think there was a lot of good in this movie. Enough good that I had recommended and enjoyed watching it, but I think you got to be real careful when you make a film that's very charming and has a lot of good going for it, because then the bad stuff sticks out more, as it does here, as it did for Love, Simon. But that being true and that being said, it's still a very enjoyable, very pleasant, very warm film that you leave feeling pretty good about, unless you're me and you're sitting there going, holy shit, is that me? I'm going to be worried about this for the next couple days. So, I mean, it's this is going to be something that's going to bug the fuck out of me. So, yeah. All right. Final grade for this one. I'm going to go B+ for Juliet Naked. Again, good film, good solid story. They did a lot of great things with the premise and the archetypes and the formula of a romantic comedy, and did things differently and made them new and interesting and fun to watch. But if you're going to do that, you need to do it for all the characters. And they almost did. It almost got there. I think that's why this one gets a B+ as opposed to like a B or B-. I think they almost got there. And I think if they had kept his character arc a little bit intact there at the end, I think this might have been an A film. But they didn't, and as such, I think this goes to the B+ range. So that's this one. So Labor Day weekend, as I'm recording this, 3-day weekend. That didn't work. 3-day weekend. There we go. So I am hoping to catch a couple of flicks over this weekend and post a couple more videos. So do stay tuned. And until next time, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.